Hi, I'm Laurie with thewifeexpert.com. Today's guest is somebody I've been so excited to have on. I am looking for people who want to be a guest on my show. Anyone who might have been divorced and got reconciled, or someone who might have been separated and got reconciled with their spouse. I want to talk to them. If you can have them email me at thewifeexpert@gmail.com, I would be so grateful. Or have them go to my website, thewifeexpert.com. This show exists only to help people stay in their marriage. I am an advocate for families, and I believe people who got married can find a way back to each other. And when they do that, families win. And then everybody else from that family, all their friends, all their relatives, everybody wins when families stay together. So that's what I do here. So thank you for coming. Please share this with your friends, your family, whoever needs me. Please share this. And let's bring on my guest right now. Her name is Kim. Let's go over and see what she's got to say. Enter the world of Kim. We have Kim as my guest today, and she is just amazing. I've worked with her over the past year or two. I forget how long she was with me, but she has some things to say, and I am all ready to hear it. So Kim, welcome. I'm so glad. I just want to tell you how grateful I am that you're on the show, because I ask people when their husbands come home to come on, and they're very apprehensive because they feel if they share their story, something bad's going to happen. And I'm always like, no, that's not going to happen. We're going to be great. But I understand that fear of sharing your story. So I just want to say thank you. You are so brave. And for anyone listening right now, if you know someone who wants to share a story, please reach out to me, because I will have you on and I want your story heard. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. How long were you married?
Well, together 16 years and married 8 now.
Okay.
8 now.
Okay. So tell me, like, what went wrong? Like, what year did things start going wrong?
I would say maybe 2018.
It's about 4 years ago.
We just have a hectic life in a good way, but just like a business, a lot of business stress, but also a lot of just fun living, but a lot of stress mixed into that, which I'm sure a lot of people can relate to. You don't, just because you have an enormous amount of stress in your life doesn't mean it's all bad. But I guess my husband he's a little more sensitive to that, instead of roll with however, if things are good, you roll with it. If things are bad, you roll with it, kind of thing. And I guess unbeknownst to me, he was not rolling with it. And so.
And you could tell.
Yeah.
That's hard. What'd you do about that? When you noticed he wasn't rolling, what'd you do about that?
Well, if I can jump forward and to answer that question to when we actually separated, how I answered it was getting nasty about it, getting pushy, out of what seemed out of the clear blue sky to me in September of last year. I was visiting my sister in Florida, and I noticed that he wasn't, usually when you land, you text your husband, he's like, yeah, I'm glad you're there. There was like no communication, and I was like, wow, something is up, because when I left, nothing was going on. I mean, he kissed me, patted me on the bottom, and put me on the plane. And
totally normal. Okay, good.
Yeah. Yes. So I knew immediately, something was very wrong. And while I was at my sister's, we talked a little bit, and he just said, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. And I mean, it was like somebody hit you upside the head with a 2x4 from behind.
Yeah.
Totally.
Okay.
Like what do you mean? And and then, you know, I'm sorry to say I went through some phases like within those conversations where I got mad, and then I backed off and said, well, we'll talk when I get home. So that's what we did. When, of course, when I got home, he wanted to pretend that that never happened. So I had to push to, quote, talk about it. And he just basically said the same thing he told me um, over the phone when I was out of town. So I made the decision to just let it go and just do my thing and be nicer and think about him more. And and we were things were normal, like we were doing things, we were doing the things we usually do, but there was that, like, he wasn't holding my hand anymore, and we're big hand holders. We hold hands in the car. So that when I got home from when we got back from the airport, I noticed we stopped somewhere and he wasn't holding my hand, and I knew in my heart that that was not good. So it's September and I'm home, and this goes on until he's going to go down to Florida we have a home in Florida, and he's going to go there and on some business. And the night before, I started getting ramped up, and I'm like, I want to talk before you go. And he said, okay, we'll talk. I said, I need to know what's happening, because now it's November 29th. And the next morning, when he was getting ready to leave, he obviously wasn't going to talk. And I flipped, and I was like, how do you're just going to get on a plane and you told me that you would tell me what's going on. And I am just I regret, I told him not to come back. I told him not to come back. And I said, don't call me, don't text me, and don't come back. And he didn't. He did not.
What regret do you think you had from that?
Oh, well, I guess, to be fair, you don't know what's happening. And
right. Fear takes over and you do weird stuff.
Yeah. And if I knew then what I know now, I wouldn't have done that. But, I felt like it had been 2 months, and, I was acting normal, but on the inside, I'm like, want to know what's happening, because I love my husband, and I didn't want him to leave. And, so yeah, nothing. He did exactly what I told him to do. And I had no contact, zero. I sent him, I waited for probably maybe 3 weeks, maybe right
before
around
Christmas. So now, right around Christmas.
And
nothing. You got nothing from him.
And I had a lot of time to think about my behavior in our marriage. And I sent him several texts, and I apologized, and really apologized. And I actually spelled out the things that I did, just how I was. And it was as heartfelt as you could get, and crickets, nothing. So I just, there wasn't much I could do. I was literally in the pit of despair, and I was searching anywhere I could for answers. Just, I'm sure everybody can relate to this. You're just poring over the internet trying to find your story, which is not, it's not hard to do. A lot of our stories are basically the same.
Same thing.
And yeah. And so I was starting to, well,
Go ahead.
I was starting to learn about midlife crisis.
Mm-hmm.
So, which I think the when you start taking things for granted and you're not taking care of your marriage, that is what makes them execute on their midlife crisis
Right.
and
Right.
leave.
I agree. Mm-hmm.
If you were being how you should be, they could probably work it out on their own.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't. But I didn't do that. So
And not a lot of people do. You're not alone. I
yeah,
didn't. I didn't know what to do.
yeah, yeah.
It's just like,
So
wait, you're not treating me right. What's happening?
I
Go, get
know. It's
out.
like, I know, how dare you,
Yeah.
and they're like,
Right.
and because he's a man of few words, and he is a very like introverted, and he is a very deep guy, and he was carrying a lot around that I didn't know about. And so yeah, no response or anything. So I began, I continued my search, and I probably found you, Laurie, right around that time. And
Christmas.
probably
That's
right
a
around
gift. Just
Christmas. I
kidding.
know. Yeah. Merry Christmas.
God wink, right? I'm all in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So, while this is going on, I mean, I literally, I didn't tell anybody. I told my two sisters and my two closest friends. That was it. And I have a pretty robust social life. I have a lot of girlfriends and everything. And I told nobody. The two
Mm.
girlfriends that I told don't even live here. And actually, there is somebody else that came into the picture that I ended up telling. But other than that, to this
So
day,
you kept it quiet,
I
which
kept
is
it
great.
quiet.
Yeah.
And
Excellent.
so within that, though, there's only so much you can be calling your sisters and your friends, and unloading, asking them to carry that, instead of spreading the love amongst all your
Mm-hmm.
girlfriends. So, I carried a lot of it on myself, and the only thing I can describe it is the pit of despair.
Yeah. It's not a
Yeah,
good place to be. I
no,
know. I know, just talking about it just makes you cry. I've looked
I
up books
know.
of my own story and, reading some things. It takes you right there.
It
Like
does.
that.
It does. It's like waking up in the middle of the night and realizing, for a split second, everything seems normal for not even a second, and then it it's it da- you under you it dawns on you he's not there, and you're just laying there at night just thinking about what you could have done, or so yeah, it was you are in the pit of despair. And so
So what do you do down there? What happens? I'd love you because you're close to it. It's been years for me.
uh,
What happens to you down there? And how do you climb out?
oh my God.
Like, are those walls made of mud where you're just slipping back down, or do you
Oh
find some
yeah.
grasp?
In the beginning, yes, in the beginning it was just, you just have no choice to ride it out. Um and I did, things like I bought ashwagandha tea because I would wake
Why? What does that do?
well, I would wake up in the morning, and I would have adrenaline surging in my chest from anxiety, and I just
Yeah.
wanted it to go. I just wanted to
Mm-hmm.
feel some peace. And I
Mm-hmm.
know that sounds silly, but it's wonderful. It's like an herb that calms you down. So I
That's
was
great.
mainlining ashwagandha tea, and so yeah, that you're in the pit, and you're in it. It's like nobody's throwing you a bone, nobody's you're in it, and you're in it alone, no matter how many people are around you. And so I got through Christmas, and actually, this is kind of odd, but right after Christmas, I get this big, huge square, rectangle thing just packed to the hilt. And I'm like, what is this? So it was from Tom, out of the clear blue sky. And we are horse people. So I opened this up, and it's a horse print, and because we collect vintage equestrian prints, and in the print there's two people, and the name, and with the horses, and at the name of the print was something like something about a disagreement at so and
Oh,
so. Like it's
okay.
like British, so it's like a
What
disagreement at Surrey Ridge or something like that. And I'm like,
what
and
does that
then
mean?
well, that was how he communicates, this man of few words.
Okay.
So I'm like, what is this? Um, so that was around Christmas, right after. So January, nothing. I haven't heard from him,
So when
anything.
he sent you
Jan,
that gift, did you thank him? Did you text him? Did you call him?
I texted him and I thanked him,
And did he
and
respond?
um, I don't think he did. I don't think he
Okay.
did. And so now here we are in January, probably early January, and I just there's I'm in bed. It's probably early in the morning, and I get up and I look outside, and there's a FedEx envelope, legal size, laying on my
Oh no.
doorstep. And I open it up, and it's papers from him.
Divorce
And
papers?
yeah, yeah.
Oh God.
And oh my God, there's no words. It's like there's no words. Um, However, I had the Laurie handy dandy method of,
What is that? What tell everyone what that is.
well, what that is you're like, oh, oh, those.
They don't mean
But
anything. They don't mean
that's
anything.
you. And
Forever a family.
no, I got to use that, but not right away, because we still weren't talking. So I'll just fast forward. They came. I realized that I had to do something, because his lawyer would, would have a better one than I would. Let's just say.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I'm like, I know I have to respond to this. So I got a lawyer, which was surreal to me. I'll never forget. It was like a blizzard outside, and we live in Ohio. There must have been 3 feet of snow out. It's a blizzard. And she had said, we have to respond to this. We have to respond to this. And I'm like, oh, okay, I don't want this, but okay. She's like, if you don't, you're going to get screwed and everything. And everything in my heart was just screaming, this is so wrong. But I let her do it. And she was like, I have to get this done because the court closes at 5 and we've got to file this now. And so I had to drive there in the blizzard to sign these papers. And I I went in and I signed them, and I cried the whole way home. And I was like, this can't happen like this. Even if it does happen, it can't happen like this. So I texted Tom when I got home, and I told him, I said, I get it. I know I understand that this is what you want, but we cannot go down this road, or we will be destroyed. Our family will be destroyed, will be destroyed, and it's already like a death. Um, and he texted me back, and he said he agreed. And so I had
Mm.
in my text, I suggested mediation. I said, if this is what you want, I said, at least let's do a mediator, so we can be the people that we are to each other through this. I know that
I
doesn't
love
make
that.
any sense, but I
What,
have to
what month was
say
that?
January,
Okay.
January. And I have to say that I never felt anger or hate towards my husband when this whole time that this was going on, other than the day that I told him not to come back. I was really mad. But as far as just going through like just, the month of December and then into January, I just didn't feel it. And as two people, I'm not even saying or talking about because I love them. I just knew that that was what was happening because of the lawyers was not how we do things.
Right.
It's
They
not,
take it
it's not,
over and they
it's,
push.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was horrifying. It was
Mm-hmm.
the most, I felt like I got on a roller coaster and I couldn't get off. And
Mm-hmm.
then I'm like getting money and giving her money. I mean, it was insane. And it was everything that people say it is. Like they, their job is to
Separate and divide.
and divide. So I texted him and I said, please, we can't do this way. We can't destroy our family. We can't destroy ourselves as people. Let's
And so
do a
when he's
mediator.
and so what how did he respond to that?
He said, I agree. I
Okay,
agree.
so now you're going to go to
So,
mediation.
yeah, so this is when Laurie comes in. So he,
That would be me, right?
that
Just
would be
kidding.
you. Yes, that would be you because
Okay.
you had said when you got papers that you were like, oh, okay, well, yeah, okay, that sounds good, but I think I'm going to have so and so. Just take a look at them and make sure that that they're all if everything's okay, and then you put them in a drawer and
Mm-hmm.
forget about them. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it was you that was saying that you're not going to help him do this. It's if you want this, you're going to have to do it. I'm not going to help you. And that's kind of the what I took on. Like he said to me when we finally talked after that text, and he said he wanted me to find a mediator, and I was like I can't help you do this. This is not what I want. So he found someone, and he was really wonderful. But I also took another page out of your book during the mediation, and the mediator's like, okay, so we're on Zoom because my husband's in Florida, the mediator's in his office, and I'm at home. And he says, who wants to start? And I'm like, Tom, go ahead. And so the mediator's asking him questions, and he's answering them. And of course, we'll call it stretching the truth. I'm like, what? This is what I'm thinking on the inside. And then he's like, okay, Kim, it's your turn. What do you want to say? And I was like, I'm good. I'm good. So I
Perfect.
think we
Yeah.
had either 3 or 4 of those mediations, and that's basically what I did.
Okay, so I'm going
So
to pause you for a second. How hard was it? Because I remember we talked about just say I'm good. Like you don't need to dump anything else. Just by
um,
saying that, how hard was that for you not to pour out
it
more?
you know why it wasn't that hard um because I first of all I believed in that method. I did not want to get I it's futile.
Mm-hmm.
What am I going to do? Just say, that's all wrong, and then the mediator's going to be racking up, and it doesn't matter at that point. Who
Mm-hmm.
cares if it's
Mm-hmm.
wrong or it's right? If you want to save your marriage, I'll tell you the biggest thing that you can do is die to yourself. Die to
Diet
yourself.
yourself?
Die to yourself, meaning it's not about you. It's about acknowledging the things that you did. How can I be better? And that begins while you're in the midst of this nightmare. It doesn't begin like if he decides to reconcile with you. It begins that, as soon as you're aware of it. And so I
Mm-hmm.
just wasn't
That's
going to
right.
do that. I wasn't going to go that is probably how he felt. And those are probably things he believed happened or
So what
whatever. And
happened after the
the
meeting with the
mediator,
4 of you on the Zoom? Yeah.
so the guy's like, we'll set another one. So we did like 3 or 4 of them. And then my husband he wasn't he didn't want to do it anymore because, they wanted him to divulge a lot of personal information, and he's just not going to do that. So that was fine.
Finances. Is
That
that what
was
he was
fine.
there with?
Yeah. Yep. And that was fine with me. So we stopped that. And then he would call me or text me, and he would say, why don't I do this for you as far as a settlement goes? And I would just listen, and I'd be like, okay, I'll think about it. Okay. So, um, so fast forward, this is going on until April, and then we're doing a lot of texting of just mindless things, nothing really deep. Um, and so he says, I'm thinking of coming up there in April. And I was like, okay, that sounds great. So he said he's coming, and sure enough, he's coming, and I pick him up at the airport, and um, he I I don't know. I think we just, we were of course I was happy. And at that point we were talking nicely, and so he was very nervous, but I wasn't. I was just happy to have him.
To have the opportunity to have him
Yeah.
with you again, because
Yeah.
now you have all these new skills.
Yeah. And I can execute on all the things I know how to do, such as when you always tell the story about when your husband would come home while you were separated to see the kids, and you'd be cooking or whatever, and he would bring up something like the papers, and you'd be like, oh God, yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot. I will call her tomorrow, and I'll see what she said about the papers. And then you would say, want some pizza?
Yeah.
And
Just like
that used to crack me up. And I'm like, that is so awesome. So
did you put it to use?
I did put it to use. Yes. So he came, I picked him up at the airport, and he had told me ahead of time that we were going to go see someone that was going to help us with our, to make this all happen, our agreement. And I'm like, okay, and I pick him up, we come home, he plays with the dogs, and he doesn't say anything. I don't think anything's going on. And I had put short ribs in a Dutch oven on 275.
So slow cooking and smelling.
225 at 11 o'clock. So when we got back from the airport, I mean, it smelled divine in our house. So when I have a horse, so I was just going to carry on with my life after he was settled. And I go, okay, I got dressed. I put my riding boots on and a cute shirt and baseball hat. And I said, I'm going to the barn. I'm going to ride. I'll be back in a little bit. And he goes,
excellent. Excellent.
He goes,
living your life in front of him. Excellent. Go ahead.
Yep. And he goes, well, wait a minute. We have an appointment. And I'm like, what? Yeah, we have an appointment. I go, well, for what? And he said, we're going to go see that woman. And I'm like, what woman? And he's like, the one that, the one, this is how he talks. He's like, he won't say it, he's like, the one that's going to help us. And I was like, oh, well, where is she? Oh, she's, so-and-so. Well, what's her name? And he tells me her name, and it's his lawyer.
Oh.
And I was like, you know what, Tom? I go, well, first of all, that is never going to happen. That scenario won't ever happen. And number two, I told you, I'm not going to help you do this. This is your thing. You have to make it happen. And I go, thirdly, we're having short ribs for dinner. And I tossed my hair back and out and left. And
amen, woman. I love it.
I was like in the car. I'm like, ooh, that was so awesome. That was Academy Award winning. It was awesome.
Excellent.
And he never brought up anything the whole time he was here. He was here for like a week, and then
Where did he sleep?
In a guest room.
Okay.
But
And how did you treat him at night when you were going to bed?
like very almost normal. Like,
Yeah.
we were having fun again. We were um, very normal, very normal. And he actually ended up staying a few days longer. He said, I changed my ticket. And I was like, oh, awesome. Yay. So, so then he left, and we, we were texting. He wasn't calling me, but we were texting back and forth. And then he said, I'm going to come back in May. And I was like, okay. And I was, I didn't act cool about it. I let him know I was elated that he was going to come home. And I'm happy that you're coming home. And I'm like, the dogs will be so happy. And so he came home in May and stayed for, I don't know, maybe almost 2 weeks, maybe. And
So let me pause you right there. So he wants to go to the divorce guy. He wants you to
mhm,
come with him. You tell him no, you're having
mhm,
pizza.
mhm.
Um, and then you're not going to talk to him till May. So at any time, because what women struggle with right at this moment is there's divorce papers on the table, and they're like, well, what's happening? What's this? What's that? Did
Yeah.
you do any of that?
Well, here's a big part of the story that I just realized that I left out. I had, you had suggested a book, Broken Heart on Hold by Linda
Mm-hmm.
Rooks, in
Yeah.
your suggested reading. And I am telling you, when it first came, maybe in December, I'm not sure. I leafed through it, and I'm like, oh, okay, you know.
That's what
And
I did.
then, I'm like, okay. And then, at some point, I'm like, one morning, I'm like, I'm gonna open this book again. And it was like I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm all over these pages. I didn't see it before.
Yeah.
And this is what began my spiritual journey, which is the most important part of our story,
Yeah.
Tom and I's, is Linda Brooks. It's a Christian book, and um, it's very about depending on God to help you through this. And I the only thing I can describe, oh, I'm probably gonna cry, but one of
It's
those
okay.
mornings I told you that it would be, you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning
Mm-hmm.
and you're just looking at a dark wall. And I don't know what happened, but I can't describe it. There's no way to articulate it. That in one moment on one of those nights, I felt like he just plucked me out of the pit of despair. See, it happened. It happened. And all of a sudden I had a heart to know him. And this book it started to all make sense. And I read it with new eyes, and I clung to I there were times I would just sit with this book in my chest and just hold it, because I couldn't do anything else. I couldn't, I couldn't, even though Tom was texting me and coming in between those times, there was, it was like it never happened. It was like it never happened. And so in those times, um, I would get like, I can't do this anymore. This is like a head trip. I can't do this. And there were times that I would ask God, I would get on my knees and I'd say, what should I do? That happened. I can't explain it. That happened. That happened to me one night, in the middle of the night, every night I would wake up in despair, and I can't even describe it. I just felt new hope, new everything.
Yeah.
And it was unbelievable. But within that doesn't mean that everything is perfect. It means that now I felt like God was holding me by my right hand through the whole thing. It was
Yeah.
amazing, but that doesn't mean that it wasn't painful, as
Mm-hmm.
painful, sometimes more. And so I clung to this book. And every time I would read it, there were things that I would be like, that doesn't apply to me. Then I would read it again and I'd be like, actually it does. Then there were
Mm-hmm.
chapters that I would highlight in pink highlighter, things that I wanted to remember, and I would read them and reread them. And they were, the majority of this book is her telling her story of being separated for 3 years from her husband. And I'm telling you, you're like, I'm only 3 months or 4 months or 5 months into this, and she did this for 3 years. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I remember thinking, I don't think I could do that. Maybe if
But
I
you
was
can.
younger.
No,
Yeah,
but you can. You like, you found God. Not a
yeah,
lot of people do.
yeah,
And I try to keep that balance with people
yeah,
that I talk to.
yeah,
But when someone discovers that, it
yeah.
is as if someone's holding your hand.
It
And it's
is.
amazing.
It is. It's indescribable. It is
So you
indescribable. And
could do 3 years if you had
oh
to.
yes, that you are right, Lori.
You just can't say it's 3 years. You have
Yeah,
to go one day at a time.
exactly. And there's this thing in your head. You're like, while you're reading it, you're like, first you're like full of hope, and then you're like, 3 years, and then you're like, oh yeah, I can, Lord, I can do this, and I'm
Yeah.
like, three. I don't know. I'm. I don't think. I think I'm too old to wait 3 years. We got to get cracking on this. So, but it's within another thing that happened as I began to read this is I and this is another thing. This happened, and you can believe it or not, and I cannot explain it except for it happened.
Before you
For
tell me, I cannot tell you how many people say, this thing happened.
Yeah,
I don't know what it was. I don't know what happened. And it's like, we call them God winks. Like,
yes,
it's like, boom, something happens. You're like, that is impossible. And
exactly.
you played
That's
a witness. It's a
exactly.
miracle.
And you feel like you almost feel foolish saying it because it sounds so unlikely.
So what
But
was it?
here's one of them. There's a whole bunch of them. But, you know, God started waking me up at 5:30 every single morning, and I heard him say, "Go downstairs and pray for your husband."
Wow.
And at that point, I had a little area that was sitting in to read, and I would have my tea, and every morning, and I would get up and I would go downstairs and I would get on my knees and I would pray for him. And I did that. I didn't stop doing that until probably maybe May, as Tom started to, as he started to come around. But actually, something that happened in April, that very first time, that between Tom and I, my sister and I started having Bible study, and we every morning on the phone. And I told Tom about that. And while he was here in April, he goes, I would like to try a Bible study, and I'm like, I almost fell off of my chair. I mean, this was so unlikely. Like
Right.
this is very unlikely. I'm like, okay, okay. So we did. I read a little bit of Samuel from the Bible, and it probably made no sense to him, but he was like, okay, that was awesome. And then when he came back in May, he said the same thing. So so we were doing that a little bit. And while this is going on, Linda Rooks has a second book called Saving Your Marriage. So her Broken Heart on Hold is her story for the 3 years. Then the second book is kind of a step by step of what you can do. And there was a place at the end of the book about when you're finally going to reconcile. And she is like, hopefully your husband is on board. You guys are equally, like, spiritually, you're equal.
Right.
And I'm like, I remember thinking, even though he had said, let's have a Bible study, and I never read it. I saw that line and I said, that's never going to happen. We're never going to be spiritually the same. That's never going to happen. And I mean it. That is never going to happen. I'm not even going to bother reading it, because as much as I would love it, and then I did that thing where I'm like, I can make this work, even though he's never going to do that. And it ended up not being true, that he ended up having the same experience that I had. My strong, man of few words, husband, caretaker, that can do anything, that you would think would never be humble enough to ask God for help in our marriage. And that happened. To this day, to this morning, he is praying for us every morning.
Okay, so walk me through. So that happened. What are there any other God winks that happened that you started to share?
Well, the fact that we're talking is, I had been telling my sisters, I desperately want to tell my story to other women who are going through what I went through and what you went through. And I finally was able to text you and let you know, and that we were reconciled. And and you were like, will you come on my podcast? And I was like, oh yes. Yes. I'm like, those kind of things, like, that's an answer to prayer.
Yeah.
That's God saying, okay, let me see what I can do. And you're like, you want to be on my podcast. So, because otherwise you're thinking, well, how would I do that? And that is how God works. He's like, you don't have to worry about that. I will make a way for that to happen.
That's right. And, you give it up to him. For those people who are religious, who want to be. When you put him on a silver platter and you're like, I can't do this anymore. This is too big for me. You got to get it. You got to get done.
Absolutely, you have to get out of the way. Because if you're in there being and he's like, would you just relax and let me take over this? And you will, as he starts to work miracles in your life, you start to let go, and you start to realize, I don't have to worry. If he doesn't text me for a month, I don't have to worry, because God is working on him, and it's in his perfect timing, which is actually what happened. And
so what happened? How did it end?
So how it ends is actually our brand new beginning. Towards the end, I didn't tell you I had surgery in June. And he came home and took very good care of me.
Yeah, I remember we talked about that.
Yeah, even though I wasn't, we had decided that neither one of us wanted this, but we didn't want to come together without doing some hard work. So when he was in Florida over the phone, I said, why don't we make a list of things that we each feel that we want to work on and fix or come to agreement on, and we'll take turns, and we'll talk it out until we'll just talk it out until we solve whatever the problem is, or we come to an agreement or whatever. And we did that. And
without a therapist,
without
going to counseling.
Yep. And again, part of that is dying to self, and part of that is taking any feelings aside of wanting to be right or knowing you're right about something, and getting rid of all of that, and just coming to the table and accepting what the other person has to say is their truth. It's what's their by the time you reach the point where we were, there was no need to play games or to make false accusations. So that's where if he's saying something to you that he feels you have done, or how you are. So we made the decision to make that list, and we made a decision that when he was here, we would not talk about those things. We only talked about those things when he went back to our home in Florida. So when he was here, we were working on being together.
Excellent.
And so like I'll never forget he had come, it was Memorial Weekend, so that was in May. Memorial Weekend. We live in one of the neatest small villages in Ohio, and we have a beautiful Memorial Weekend celebration. And we walked into town, and I'll never forget it. He put his arm around me.
Ah! Back to hand holding. Excellent.
Yep. He put his arm around me. And
what did that feel like?
And he did it. He put his arm around me at one point, and then he did it like one or two other times when he was here. That was his way of experimenting with, I knew why he was doing it. He was trying to, it can be awkward, no matter how long you've been together, it can be awkward. So he was trying, he was doing a great job. So anyways, so how it ended, and then I do want to tell you what my friend shared with me, but it might have been in June, July, maybe in August, he had come back after being here for maybe 2 and 3 weeks maybe, and he was going to go home or go back to Florida. And all of a sudden I felt released from this phase that we were in of me waiting. And I took my ring off and I set it down on the table, and I said, at that point, now this will show you when I say it doesn't mean everything's perfect. You have to let go of perfect, because perfect
doesn't exist.
It's not real. And no. I put my ring on, and I was upset that he was going back to Florida. And I said, I want you to tell me if I should continue to wear these, or because I can't do this anymore. It's too hard for me to watch you leave and come back and leave and come back. And I don't know how it happened, but I ended up with my rings back on.
You don't remember what happened?
Well,
how did you get them back on? What did he say?
I think we were actually probably having an argument. We were arguing because, and that's another thing, the story is beautiful, but it wasn't, again, not perfect. And I'm not sure. He was probably doing something. He was probably not doing something that I wanted him to do, like how he responded. Okay. Like you're like, just like, God, so anyways, but it ended up that, he basically, without saying it, his style, this is how he operates, it went back on. And so
now you got the ring back on.
The ring, and then we're at the point where now we're acknowledging we're together, and another answer to prayer is he said, I'm home now, meaning he's no more going back to Florida because we're, quote, still working on this. And he came home.
And when was that? What month was that?
Well, he went back a couple of times just for meetings, very quick. And the last time he went was in probably late October. Okay. And then he's been home. He has been home since. And we have a whole new marriage. We have a whole new marriage because you have to be willing to. And another rule that we set, which I think was so important when we had our, quote, discussions of our list, no reliving the past.
Yes, let it
forward.
go.
Let it go. There's no zero past.
Yep.
The past does not exist. What exists now are these things that are things, and how do we make these work moving forward?
Yep.
And that served us very well too. And again, if he's saying something that you don't agree with and you feel yourself getting huffy on the inside, you have to, it's your job. You have to decide, do I want my marriage to work, or do I want to be right and say, that never happened, or whatever, or I don't do that. Oh, why are you saying, why is this on your list?
Yeah,
So
it's a choice right there at that moment.
Don't get mad when he makes a list, if there's something on it you don't like
or agree with,
because the fact that you got him to make a list is like a miracle.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So but
tell me about your girlfriend. You were going to tell me about your girlfriend.
Somebody that I know, not well, but somebody that I know that got a divorce. I called her. I got her number. I didn't even have her number. I got her number and I called her and I told her what was going on. And she came over to visit me. She was so kind.
Wow.
And I know. She was that day. And she came over and hugged me and cried with me. I know. I mean, I only knew this person to say hello to. And so I asked her, what if you could choose one thing, because it's over. She's been divorced. It's over. But I said, looking back, if you could have changed one thing about what you did, what would that be? And guess what she said? She said, I would have waited.
Oh, yes.
I would have waited. And that is, first of all, I almost fell off my chair because God was telling me every day, just wait, just wait. Just when I would get like, I can't do this anymore, I literally would hear him say, wait.
Yeah,
wait.
That's awesome. And what is interesting about that, you said she's divorced, it's over. I am one of those people that once you were married, it is never over. Even if they marry someone else, it is never over.
I agree.
You can still have that mindset of one day we'll be back together.
Exactly.
Don't ever give up.
Exactly. I do. I believe that all my heart and soul, that it doesn't matter. It never matters what it looks like.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing, one more thing, the other thing I was going to say is that waiting thing back when I was going through this, that was the information I received because I interviewed so many older people. Mm-hmm. And that was a regret. I should have waited. I met him again at the son's graduation 20 years later, and I stared at her and I was like, I should have waited. Mm-hmm. I wish I was married to her, not her. Mm-hmm. That's a terrible place to be.
And what that to me, because I didn't ask her to expound on it because it was very personal, but to me, if I understood her correctly, I felt like what she meant was, if your husband wants to divorce you, do not do that thing where you're like, you bastard, you think you're gonna divorce me? You just wait, and I'm gonna take you to the cleaners, and I'm gonna do that to you before you can do it to me. I think that's what she meant.
Oh yeah,
I think there's
a lot of that.
Mm-hmm. And I took that and I never let go of it. And that was also, again, before then, God, every day he would say, just wait. I would be like, what do I do, Lord? What do I do? What do I do? And he would just be like, wait.
Yeah.
And
awesome.
So all of those things happened.
And the fact that you were so connected, because people will say who do try religion and like, I'm praying to God, it's not working. Mm-hmm. And I say, you're not listening. There's a really, like, you have to be open to receiving that information.
You have to. And he's not a vending machine where you put a quarter in and you get your wish. If nothing is happening, that means you have work to do on your end. And if he did reconcile you, it wouldn't work because you guys are not,
you're not ready.
You're not ready.
Yes.
So you have to take it as a gift And the more that you work on yourself, the more your husband looks at you and says, wow,
Huh?
I might be able to work with this,
Yes.
but it has to be real. It can't be like you're trying to trick him, because you can tell.
Yeah.
And yes, because my husband told me, he's like, I was done. I just wanted it to be over.
Did he say what shifted him to come back?
Yeah,
What did he say?
what I just said was, because I was different. He was
Okay.
seeing something in me that he had never seen before, and that,
Or he only saw when he first met you.
or he, well, not, I don't even believe that, Laurie. I believe that
You didn't get there.
I am so different because of my spiritual walk with the Lord, my walk with God. He's first, and everybody else is second. And I was clinging to him and not to Tom. And you're just different. You're lighter, you're joyful, you're not agitated, you're not mean, you're not annoyed at every little thing. And they're like looking at you, I'm assuming, like, wow, she's pretty good. Maybe
Yeah, I
I'm
dumped
making a
all that
maybe.
stuff on you and you're just standing there?
Yeah.
And you're like,
Want some-
okay.
yeah.
It's
Want
so,
some pizza? Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great line I came up with. I love
That was awesome. That was awesome. Yeah. I know. My sisters actually use that.
Do they? It's really
Yeah.
good that when you make a statement and you want it to stick,
Yeah.
especially if it's one that they're going to have a response or ponder about,
Yeah.
there's no reason to wait because they're going to say something stupid back and you're going to get
Yeah.
angry. So instead,
Exactly.
change the subject and, you know,
And be
maybe not
nice.
pizza, coffee,
And
cough
yeah.
drop,
Or short
whatever it is.
ribs. Yeah.
Or short
Yeah.
ribs.
And like what you were saying, you're being nice. You're like, you want to stay and have pizza with the kids, or do you want, be nice. I mean, that should be, duh. How about the first thing you do? Be nice. Don't
Right.
be mean. Don't be revengeful, nasty. Bah.
Did you ever feel resentment towards him?
No.
Yeah.
No.
That right there is the ticket out. Right there. Because when you have resentment and you're not willing to forgive and you're still in that angry zone, he's not coming home. You got to get past that.
I know.
And
the only way to not have resentment is to not be looking at what he did, but to be do a real hard
house cleaning.
look at how you have been. And then your eyes aren't on him. Your eyes are on yourself, and how can I be better? How can I be somebody that deserves his love? You know, this guy who's been a great guy, he's a wonderful father, a great provider. This is not something that he would do for no reason.
That's right.
So, yeah.
That's great. Okay, so let me ask you a couple questions. What can you advise the listeners who are listening to this right now? What advice can you give them going through with what you went through?
Wow. First of all, I would definitely, and your videos I subscribed to them, and you cling to all that, any information, and you watch it over and over, and it starts to get in you, and you start to become just like that's why they pay, $500 million for a 30-second Super Bowl ad, because the more you watch something, the more it gets in you and you remember it. And so, I was on your website all the time at night. I'd be like, is there something new going on? And then I also, you and I talked many times, and my story probably sounds fast, but it was like an eternity.
It is fast.
Yeah.
Normally it takes about 2 years.
Yeah.
Yours is very fast.
Yeah.
What do you think it was? 10 months from the time he left?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or 11, 12? He left in November?
November. Yeah.
And came back in October permanently?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, 11 months. Yeah, that's really good. My quickest was 10 months, and it was a guy.
Mm-hmm.
But he memorized everything I ever said. So you're right there.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
took a lot of time.
And Linda Rook's book is
I'll put that
amazing.
For everyone who's listening, I'll put that information in the below, as well as the tea you said. I'd like to get the name of that tea. I'll put a link below as well, so people can click on both of those. So they can get the tea in the book.
I am going to tell you just how crazy I was, and out of my mind. I don't want anybody to think that I was just this calm, beautiful, serene soul. I would be up in the morning. I would be reading my book, Linda Rook's book, and reading my Bible, and it would be 9:00 in the morning, and I would be drinking champagne.
What?
Yes.
Because
because I had so much adrenaline in my adrenaline, like you feel like you're being chased.
Yeah.
Like a monster was after me, that I would wake up in the morning and I could not calm myself down.
So you would drink champagne. I would not know that.
I would drink. And hilarious. And guess what? I was so, you're in a heightened, you are in fight or flight, because you're fighting for your marriage and what feels like your life. You're literally your life. Everything you hold dear it feels like it's going away. And I was so like, that I didn't even feel it. I didn't even feel it after, that's how like physically you have to get a hold of yourself. And I didn't do that anymore.
So I'm trying to understand this, because this is a funny scene and I didn't know you did that. Yeah. So at 9:30 in the morning, you pop up with a champagne, put it in a little nice fluty glass, and sit down and have your Bible and your book.
I wouldn't even put it in a good glass. I would put it in a coffee mug.
Oh, my God.
And this is after I would drink a couple of ashwagandha teas, and I'd be like, I feel like I'm going to go crazy if I can't calm myself down. And I was like, I know this looks bad and it's wrong. It sounds so wrong, but I'm like, Lord, I'm doing, this is what I'm doing. And
so, but it was champagne and not vodka.
No,
I think that's interesting. Why champagne?
Well, why not?
I know. It's like almost like a celebration. That's so interesting. Why not? Would you finish the bottle?
No. I mean, that's like a coffee mug, just like,
just
like this
to take the edge off.
Just anything that would make you take that deep breath and go, now I can get on with my day. So,
That's hilarious. My warning is to people, like for the 2 years my husband was gone, I didn't drink a thing. I was terrified I'd drunk dial him.
Yeah.
So I tell people, don't drink during this time, because it's just a time to get in touch with yourself. But obviously it helped you, create a link back to God and learning how to be better.
It was like, I felt terrible doing it because, that looked really bad. But I also knew that God knew my heart, and he knew where I was. He knows what that feels like to be, to be in that position. So I didn't read too much into it, other than it was a small period of time when I was at my very heightened, just everything. And then that eventually calmed down, and then I was just on my ashwagandha tea. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, I shared that only because, I want everybody to know that you have to fight and push through wanting to give up, and you have to fight and push for what you want.
What you believe in too.
What you believe in, and it is not for the faint-hearted. And I just want to say this, that I have my own discovery. I believe why people are so nasty and so mean and awful when they're divorcing is it's the only way that you can do it, because it's so horrible. It's like a death. Yeah. Unless you have God in the middle and he's orchestrating these things. If you are on your own, this is why people try to destroy each other, because
Yeah.
it's like a death. It is not meant to be taken apart. It's like
Well, that's interesting.
you're being
Yeah.
ripped in half. The only way that you can execute on this horrible thing is to dig up hate and resentment and all that. And if and that so that's what I know that that's true. I know that that's true. I know
That's
what
the
it
one
feels like.
thing that will keep you separate.
Uh-huh.
And so that's what happens when someone's really
Mm-hmm.
mad and the other person
Mm-hmm.
goes into a position like yours where
Mm-hmm.
love and kindness, they
Mm-hmm.
can't be mad at love and kindness.
You
And that
can't.
gets them madder because they want to
Yeah.
be mad at you and they want you mad at
Yeah.
them. So this makes it easier.
Yep.
You don't play that game.
Yeah. 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 It was I could only do that with God holding my right hand. And so now I have my marriage. We have a brand new marriage.
Excellent. I'm so happy
Brand
for you.
new
I'm
marriage.
so happy for you. You're one of many, but you're like one of the only people I can get on the show. So I am so grateful. I had a couple other people on, didn't change their name, but I am so grateful for you for being here. So anything else, like, is there any like lesson that you want to say? I mean, I think we've gotten a few of them, but anything else?
Well, I mean, looking at yourself and changing yourself and to be a better person. You don't have to be a monster to make yourself a better person. You can always improve. So in addition to being the kind of person that your husband feels he can come home to and want to come home to, you're for yourself, the peace and joy that you get from that is such a gift. So it's not just about doing that so he can come home. Your whole life and world is different. You drive to the grocery store and somebody gets, in your way and you're like,
that is no big deal.
Go on.
Come on.
Yeah. Come on. Anybody else want to go in front of me? Instead of being like, what the, I mean, you actually become that. And so it has to benefit you too. You can't do it just to get them home. And that's my advice would be to give God a chance wherever you are in your story. Ask him. Say, I can't do it on my own.
Yes. I have one more question because I'm sure someone's going to ask you this. Do you think there was a horse face, which means an affair partner? Do you think he had somebody? What are your thoughts on that? At
first, I thought it was possible slightly, but I don't believe so. I don't believe so because he has described to me so many, a lot about how lonely he was and how he would come home and just like open up a box of crackers and I don't believe so. I don't believe so. Plus the fact that my mom and dad have a house down the street helped too. But I don't. In our own situation, it's something that I really did not believe, and I have a pretty intuition. So
and you're really lucky, and maybe there was someone who was thinking about, or maybe whatever fantasized.
Absolutely, yeah.
It didn't happen.
Yeah,
it didn't go to fruition.
Yeah, exactly. Which is great. Exactly. So, yeah.
Well, Kim, I just want to tell you. Sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead. Anything else?
No. Well, I mean, I really, I know all about horse face. And I'm happy to report I don't believe it, but that even if it did, to me that falls under the past is the past.
Yep. Bye-bye.
And that's that. So
the past does not serve you today in a relationship. It might diagnose something, but once it's done, it's like everyone needs to have Alzheimer's about yesterday.
Otherwise, you're showing that you're not you're more interested in digging it up and throwing dirt than you are in something brand new. And can I just say one more thing?
Yeah.
About being brand new. In my, as we were reconciling, I have a very, very beautiful engagement ring. And I remember thinking I would I don't really want that ring anymore. I want a new wedding ring because what we're doing is new. And then I thought, well, I'm not going to ask him for that because the other one's nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah.
And he asked me, he's like, what do you want for Christmas? And I said, I'll tell you, the only thing I want, let's take my ring to the jeweler and have them zhuzh it, meaning take it apart, clean it, and tighten it up and make sure it's okay and everything. And he goes, okay, that would be, we'll do that. And he goes, no lie, this just happened the other day. He goes, maybe, I don't know, maybe you might want to do something different.
And did you?
Oh, yeah. I go, what? And I go, actually, yes, I would love that. I mean, it's another one of those God winks. You're like, he gives you the desires of your heart.
Yeah.
And that was something that I had been thinking of, but I thought, oh, that probably sounds terrible. I want a different ring. How do you say that without sounding bad? But he said it to me. He's like, he said it. He goes, yeah, we can do that. He goes, maybe you might want to get something different. I was like, okay.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Well, Kim, this has been awesome. I am so grateful and blessed that you are able to share your story.
Thank you.
And brave of you to do this. So thank you so much. I'm sure I'm going to get emails about the things you've talked about. So, and I will put those two things, the tea as well as the book, links below.
Yeah.
And I thank you from the bottom of my heart, and always reach out to me whenever you need me.
I will. And I thank you for what you probably will never know what your work is doing for people. You will never know. It would be impossible.
I think I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did. The reason I do it is because I needed someone like what I do.
Yeah.
When I was going through with you, what you did,
and by the way, it's almost like there's 100 of you, because I'm like, I don't even know. Like when we would talk, we would talk, and I knew that you had all these other people, but you always were there, and you always made me feel like I was the only person that you had. So I'm like, it's almost like there's 100 Lauries running around, but no, there's hilarious. Just you. So yeah.
No, it's just me. Yeah.
So thank you, Laurie.
You're welcome. Thank you. I'm so glad it all worked out. You're just a bright light, and you're hope for a lot of people. So thank you.
Okay.
I'm so happy.
Okay.
We'll talk soon. Thank you, Kim. Mwah.
Okay. Thank you.
That was amazing. I hope you enjoyed Kim. She is everyone I've ever talked to. Everyone has the same story, finding where they're going to go to bring their spouse back. Use everything you can find out there. There are books, there's other websites, there's other people. Search. Don't quit. Search till you find the answers that you're looking for. If you need me, I am here. thewifeexpert.com. Find me there. Don't give up on your marriage. Don't.